Glistening missiles line an underground silo outside Isfahan, sealed from sun and spy satellites. Major Hassan Rezai, engineer-turned-operator, inspects his brainchild, the missile boasting a Mach 13 hypersonic glide vehicle. Following years of clandestine R&D and Chinese North Korean tech assistance, Iran's clandestine Fateh-2 is deemed ready. Rezai's voice trembles as he receives final launch clearance. Over in Tehran, Dr. Leyla Moghaddam, lead missile guidance specialist, tests the electro-optical seeker. On her screen appears a stylized iron dome. Battery, her finger lingers over the launch button for deterrence. She murmurs, "Word has leaked to Israeli intelligence via a UDAO-based SIGINT feed." IDF analysts stay tightly pressed behind screens in Tel Aviv, calling an emergency briefing. Our Iron Dome cannot handle Mach 13 barrage. In the early dawn, deep canisters in Isfahan open. Fateh-2 missiles, cloaked in stealth radar-absorbent coatings, emerge. Rezai receives final off. Launch sequences begin. Booms reverberate beneath the desert earth. One missile arcs upward, its second stage booster firing into the sky. Analysts monitor telemetry as the hypersonic glide vehicle detaches and flies toward Israel at staggering speed. Instead of a straight arc, it dips and weaves unpredictably, trapping optics and counter radar. Tel Aviv's Missile Defense (COC) Command Operations Center thrums with alarms as Iron Dome radar beams lock onto traditional short-range rockets from Gaza. Meanwhile, a new blip enters the hypersonic missile, almost impossible to track, evading detection. Lieutenant Yael Mizrahi watches tense screens. "What is that?" she whispers. The unique signature sparks a new alarm. It's hypersonic, as incoming Iranian rockets and missiles cross Israeli airspace. Iron Dome interceptors scramble. The short-range rockets are mostly taken out, but the hypersonic Fateh-2 slices through, unchallenged. By dusk in Haifa, a stray decoy rocket hits. Structural damage, shattered windows, the first small tremors of a new threat. The call to prayer had just ended in southern Tel Aviv when the sky cracked open. Siren after siren echoed across the rooftops. Children were pulled from playgrounds. Cars halted mid-street. But this time, it wasn't the usual short-range rockets from Gaza. The early warning radar had barely given 30 seconds. Avi Natan, a 42-year-old school teacher, stood frozen outside his classroom. His son was still inside, drawing airplanes on the chalkboard. The ground shook. A sudden roar swept through the air, too fast, too sharp. No Iron Dome streaked into the sky. No interception trails. Just silence, then a blast. Avi was thrown backward as a shockwave shattered the school windows. Smoke filled the air. The children screamed. In the distance, a black plume rose from the center of the city, the heart of the government sector. Half a world away, in a dimly lit NSA operations room in Bluffdale, Utah, analyst Corporal Sarah Levine stared at her screen in disbelief. Satellite thermal readings were off the charts. One projectile too fast, too evasive, had bypassed the entire Israeli air defense grid. She hit the secure line. "This isn't a standard MRBM. This thing maneuvered midair." Iron Dome didn't even fire. The room filled with low murmurs. Senior analyst Colonel Bates stepped in, jaw tight. Iran's Fateh-2 confirmed. Terminal glide. No predictable arc. Radar scattering design. They just leapfrogged our whole regional defense model. "Israel's not ready for this," Sarah whispered. He nodded. "Neither are we." In Palmachim Air Base, Israeli Air Force pilots stood shoulder to shoulder for an urgent midnight briefing. The commander, General Rezai, pointed to the large screen displaying blurred satellite images. Fateh-2 has a confirmed glide stage. Arrow 3 tried to lock on, but its radar signature dipped under atmospheric refraction. He paused. "It means one thing. Our Iron Dome can't stop it. Not alone." Pilot LT Avi Shalev raised a hand. "What about Iron Beam?" Aiden shook his head. "Still in prototype stage. We need to go old school. We intercept the launchers directly deep inside Iran. Operation Wallflower is greenlit. Target, Isfahan. Tel Aviv was no longer a war zone in waiting, it was the war zone. In the heart of the Neve Tzedek district, Dr. Lior Aharoni, a trauma surgeon, worked by candlelight. The hospital's power grid had failed after the third missile impact. The shockwave had buckled entire wings of the building. She was stitching up an elderly man's neck when she heard shouting from the hallway. Another wave incoming. She didn't flinch, just tied the final knot and moved to the next bed. Two teenagers with facial burns from a collapsed apartment block. Outside, drones hovered uselessly. The Iron Dome had spent its Tamir interceptors. Soldiers were reloading crates by hand, sweating under a cloudless sky. She opened the backdoor code 1. She had embedded secretly within the FATA guidance system years ago. A kill switch hidden under a flower's name, jasmineline.exe. If triggered, it could deactivate the homing module of any FATA missile in flight. She hesitated, then she typed the first string, JL_001. Unlock key authorization. The Israeli War Cabinet met under reinforced concrete, codenamed Citadel 9, below the Knesset. Prime Minister Noam Regev, exhausted and fuming, addressed the defense minister. We struck Isfahan. Still, hypersonics flew hours later. You told me we knocked them out. Defense Minister Ariel Cohen rubbed his temples. They're mobile, Prime Minister. They have decoys. The real launchers could be anywhere. Regev turned to Mossad Chief Dalia Meir and Cyber. They're isolated, she replied. We haven't breached their command layer. Suddenly a screen lit up. Another launch detected 3 incoming. Arrow 3 batteries activated, trying desperately to lock on. But the glide path was erratic again. They broke into 3 directions. One headed toward the Negev Nuclear Research Center, one to Dimona, and one to central Tel Aviv. One interceptor fired missed. The second hit shattered only part of the warhead. The third, no contact. A blackout surged across half of Tel Aviv as the missile struck a power substation. Civilians screamed in darkness. Emergency services were paralyzed. Lieutenant Yael Mizrahi, still stationed in the Tel Aviv operations bunker, hadn't slept in 36 hours. She had lost her cousin in the Haifa blast, but the new wave of missiles had triggered her to re-enter the control center. Her hair tied back, hands steady on the console. They're not flying on normal trajectories, she said. This isn't standard tech. Then, something strange happened. One of the missiles midair froze on her radar. It wobbled, lost speed, and tumbled downward, crashing harmlessly into a field. What just happened? An operator asked. Yael stared. It glitched. Or someone interfered. She marked the anomaly. 3 minutes later, a second missile did the same. Unbeknownst to her, Dr. Leyla Moghaddam's Jasmine line code was taking effect. In Tehran, General Hassan Rezai watched as his missile fleet prepared for what he dubbed Phase Thunder, a final, multi-wave strike designed to overwhelm all of Israel's defensive layers. 30 missiles, half of them FATA to south, launched in tight salvos. His pride was unmatched. His logic, if even to made it through, Israel's deterrence doctrine would collapse. The launch began. Screens lit up across Middle Eastern skies. Satellite feeds in Washington, Moscow, and Berlin tracked the launches with red urgency. Every nation held its breath. But at the same moment, in a basement terminal, Dr. Moghaddam hit the final command. JL_terminate_ all equals wide none. She whispered to no one. Let this end. She pressed Y. Across the night sky, 30 hypersonic missiles streaked like falling stars, each one carrying deadly payloads and promises of chaos. Then, mid-flight, something unheard of happened. One missile tumbled out of the sky, spiraling like a wounded bird. A second simply froze midair, engine stalled. A third detonated harmlessly over the Mediterranean. In underground bunkers from Tel Aviv to Haifa, stunned operators stared at their screens. There, failing, Yael Mizrahi whispered, "What the hell?" A data stream emerged in the IDF command net. Jasmine protocol in effect. Guidance disrupted. Hostile trajectory broken. No one had seen it before. It didn't come from Israeli code. It came from inside Iran, inside the command center in Tehran. General Rezai barked at his tech officers. What happened? Those missiles were flawless. We've lost guidance. One shouted. All 10 hypersonics diverted. Cyberattack. No breach. The fault's internal. Rezai froze. Leyla. They stormed the university basement where Dr. Leyla Moghaddam sat, still staring at her screen, hands trembling. Soldiers burst in. Step away from the terminal. She didn't. You just disarmed a national deterrent. She looked up with calm defiance. I saved millions of lives. Her arrest was swift, but her message had spread. Iranian scientists began leaking what she had done. The world knew someone from inside had stopped the destruction. Tel Aviv was still standing but scarred. The blackout zones were slowly restored. Emergency crews dug through rubble where earlier missiles had struck. Fires still smoldered in parts of the city. Yael Mizrahi, now outside the bunker, stood near the burnt wreckage of an apartment block. A girl's shoe lay half buried in the ash. A boy's drawing of birds clung to a half-broken wall. She broke into quiet tears. At the hospital, Dr. Leora Aharoni held the hand of a young burn victim, who had lost both parents in the Beersheba blast. The child had not spoken for days, but that afternoon, when the sun finally broke through the dust, she whispered, "The missile didn't hit us." In a secure digital channel routed through Germany, Yael Mizrahi received an encrypted message. From Iran, it read, "I am Dr. Leyla Moghaddam. I created the missile. I stopped it. Not for your people, not for mine, but for the children who no longer draw stars. You will be hated for fighting. I will be executed for stopping it. But we were human." For one moment longer than they expected, Yael forwarded it to the Prime Minister's office. It spread across Israel, then across the world. In Germany, peace envoys began preparing for emergency ceasefire negotiations. 2 months later, the war was officially declared over. Not with flags, not with handshakes, but with silence. Iran's hypersonic program was internationally sanctioned. Israel began declassifying the failure of Iron Dome in the face of hypersonics, but also acknowledged one woman had prevented greater destruction. Dr. Moghaddam was never heard from again. Some say she vanished in Evin prison. Others claim she was quietly extracted to Europe. In Tel Aviv, Yael Mizrahi visited a school where the children now painted again. She stared at one drawing, a missile in the sky, breaking into flowers mid-flight. She smiled. Back in Beersheba, a plaque was erected on a concrete wall. Here the shield broke, but humanity did not. In memory of the unnamed thousands who chose restraint when fire was easier,